Have you ever achieved a goal and then realized that the cost was just too high?
Or have you ever achieved success and secretly knew you compromised your values? Today, we're going to continue the conversation on what are you willing to give up for success?
Welcome to the Influencers Journey Show. My name is Susanna Hart.
And I'm Taria Hodge.
And the big question is this: how does the average entrepreneur like us, who started with limited time, zero marketing budget, and little to no presence, get their authentic message into the marketplace and become a person of influence?
And what skills must you learn? And most importantly, who are you required to become to magnetically attract your divine client and build a loyal following? Great day, Suzanne. I am super excited to continue the conversation because I think last week's conversation was really juicy and we were getting into the crux of it, and it deservingly deserved a part two. And so for our super achievers who did not catch the conversation last week, what are you willing to give up for success? I'm going to encourage you to go back to our YouTube channel and grab part one of the conversation. But what we're going to do is just kind of set the stage today. And so I think we left our conversation last week with the question, do people understand the cost of success? And
Absolutely.
yeah, and I shared is that thing where when you get on the journey, I don't really think people truly understand the cost of success. And so we're going to dig a little bit deeper into that today.
You know, what's interesting is last week's show was all about there is a cost and you have to be willing to pay some price, right? You've got to be willing to give up some things. You got to be able to put in the time. You've got to be able to surround yourself with people who support you. And sometimes that means letting go of people who may not believe in your dreams and all those different things. You've got to be able to create an environment that we call pull for your success. Am I creating an environment that demands that I grow, that allows me to focus, that exposes me to the things that I want to know and have to learn? Am I playing in bigger pools that demand more of me? And am I willing to face the fears that come with success and grow in to a person who can actually achieve the goal and the vision that I've casted for myself? So there's definitely success. I think what's going to be interesting about this show is, when is it too much?
Right.
Because at the end of the day, there is a cost no matter which way you look at it. And so you've got to kind of figure out, well, if there's a cost, am I willing to pay that price?
Hmm.
And here is the limit. Yeah.
Yeah, because I know for me, there's some things that I'm willing to do, and then there are other things that absolutely not. I'm not willing to do that. Like success is not worth that to me. And so I'm like I said, I'm super excited for us to dive in today into what some of those things or what some of those situations look like. Because like I said, as super achievers on the journey to building our influence and building our business, we all at one point are faced with asking ourselves the question, what am I willing to give up? What is it? What are the things that I'm truly willing to do on the road to success? Or what are some of the things that I'm not going to do on the road to success?
Absolutely. And I think they also change as time goes on. I think they change as we mature and as we grow. So, for example, when I was first starting out, I was very clear I was not willing to speak in public. Well, as I went along the journey, I realized that there was only going to be so far I can go without actually claiming the front of the room and
Right.
exposing groups and people to who I was, what I was becoming, and what I stood for. And so I had to face all those fears. And trust me, there was a lot.
Mhm.
And so there are certain things that you wouldn't do. I thought there were going to be people that were going to come with me on this journey. And those same people looked at me like I had two heads and needed to see, needed some psychiatric help. And I realized I had to let those people go. for that season at least. And
Right.
so certain things that I thought, well, no, I would not do that in order to get where I want to go. And then soon realized, well, yes, I would. And I think the contrary is there's certain things that people are saying, well, will you do this? And I'm like, no, no, I will not. And I think what we're going to talk about today is how do you know what that no is? Where's that line that you know you will not cross in the pursuit of success? And what happens when you do cross it?
Yeah.
So if you're just joining us, please let us know who you are and where you are joining us from. Uh, Put your name in the comment section, who you serve, what you do while you're living. And as the show goes on, definitely comment, like, add to the conversation, ask questions. Bottom line, light up the comment section. If you're listening to the replay, definitely hashtag replay. Let us know where you're joining us from, who you serve and what you do while you're living, what brought you out, and what you're hearing that moved you, what you're hearing that inspired you, what you're hearing that you may agree with or disagree. We're interested in knowing it all. We will definitely come back, look at the comments, and add to the conversation.
And also, as a thank you for taking time out of your schedule to join us on this beautiful conversation, we have a gift for you. So if you take a minute to look below the video in the description, you'll see that you will have access to the Freestyle Speaker Playbook. Now, I'm going to tell you, this playbook is for every entrepreneur, every core coach, every course creator who have a desire to get more exposure without buying ads and breaking the bank. Wouldn't you love that? So do yourself a favor, look below the description of the video, and then click on your Freestyle Speaker Playbook. Make sure you download it. It is your guide to getting recognized, hired, and paid what you are worth. And then lastly, if you have not done so already, take a minute to subscribe to the Influencers Journey Show channel. This is where we have our conversations weekly. So we want you to be able to join in the conversation like Suzanne stated. Make sure as you watch, you add your comments, tag another super achiever in the conversation, and then don't forget, hit that notification bell so you can get notified every time we do the show. All right, Suzanne, are you ready?
I am ready. So for those of you who are just joining us, welcome back to the Influencers Journey Show. Our topic today is what are you willing to give up for success? Now, this is the part 2. It is a different perspective on the same discussion. So if you didn't see part 1, you may want to go and grab that and watch it and then proceed to part 2, or watch part 2 and then go back to part 1 and say, ah, both of them do apply. So where do you want to start, Turia?
Yeah, so like we said at the top of the show, there's always a cost to success. And so one of the first things I think we should start out is asking the question, how do we determine the cost of success, and how do we know when the cost of success is too high?
Wow, that's it. It's a huge question. And, when I first started, I didn't actually know how to determine it,
Mhm.
or I didn't consciously know. And as things progressed, I ran into things that I had a conflict. And what I mean by a conflict, have you ever, if you're listening, had not a conflict with someone, but a conflict within you,
Mhm.
where
Yep.
you've been asked to do something, or someone suggesting we do something, or the way we're going to do it, or the action that's going to be taken has something begin to stir inside of you, and your gut kicks in, and your gut says, not a good idea. Or your gut says, no. And anyway, your gut is talking to you. It's almost like this intuition, this inner place, this inner knowing. It's talking to you, and you experience what I like to call a disruption.
Mhm.
Right? You experience this disruption, and the closer you get to doing the thing that you're being asked to do, the more disrupted you become. Have you had that?
Yeah, so if you allow me to share, I remember the very first time I ever felt such a disruption. And it was actually when I was working in my 9 to 5. And I was one of those people who people were surprised when I left. my 9 to 5. I'm not going to call the company, but people were surprised when I left. And the reason why they were surprised is because I was actually on the track to becoming one of the managers. And people looked at me as this stellar employee. I made my numbers, everything looked great on the outside. But what people didn't really know on the inside is that I was conflicted every single day. Every single day I went to work, I felt as if I was being asked to do things that for me were out of integrity for me. And I was just like, yeah, I understand this is the path that the company is going in order for them to make millions and be successful and be that company that's on the cutting edge of technology and all of these wonderful things. But it was those little underlying things, like the way how they treat employees. And I
Mm.
had a problem with that. The underlying thing in how they handle their customer care. And this is the thing that was really interesting about this company. They made it prominent and known that our customers are number one. And I remember every time we would have a meeting, they would point out on the bottom of your paycheck, it says brought to you by our customers. And I literally took that to mean that I'm supposed to really take care of the
Yeah.
customers. But in their mind, they're like, no, we don't really want you to do that, because if you solve every problem, people won't call in, and then we won't have any opportunities, to make money and to generate revenue. So you just go this much, and then you leave a little bit more for them to call back. And to me, that was highly unethical. And it caused a lot of stress for me, Suzanne. And so I made the decision to step away because I felt a huge part of me was out of integrity every single day.
Mhm. You know,
What
I
about
have,
you?
I have similar circumstances as well, where I would always be that employee, and I've mentioned this before, that was prone to rewrite policy, push the envelope, want to do things differently. And part of it was, it wasn't that I wanted to be disruptive, it was I would see things, and to me, it didn't make sense.
Mhm.
And to ask me to do the thing that didn't make sense had me just like, I don't understand this. I don't know what to do. And it was that sort of thing that started this journey of me beginning to understand this inner place in me that guided me,
Mhm.
right? I know when I got into network marketing particular, and so that's the beginning of my journey of kind of not having a 9 to 5 and working for myself. And I would see things like I would see people, working really hard and not seeing their families in the pursuit of income. I would see people saying they were going to do one thing and doing another. I would see people pit themselves against their own team and fight for sales and all these different things. And for me, it always sat oddly. I would see people have these, and I've talked about it, these cheesy, crazy lines that they said to people. And I'd be like, I can't say that. And inside of me, there was always this churning and burning. And to be quite honest, while it was happening and while I was figuring it out and while I was attempting to do the things that were recommended, nothing happened for me. My business didn't grow. And I really want to highlight this because I believe I was saying something verbally, but my body language and my energy was saying something totally different, because I was so out of alignment and I was so disconnected from what I believed and what I thought should happen, that I think it was all over me. And so although I would be saying to people, yes, come and get started with me, they were looking at me going, I'm not sure you believe what you're saying.
Yeah.
And the truth be, I didn't believe what I was saying. And so the cost became really high. And I watched people over and over again do things that they wouldn't want someone else to do to them. And for me, that's always a guide. You know, would I do this? Would I want someone to do this to me? And not to say that I'm perfect and I've always treated people the way I want to be treated. However, when I catch myself, I do my best to rectify it. However, I will not blindly ignore how I'm engaging with someone because it doesn't sit right just to get ahead. So part of what we're talking about is the compromises
Yeah.
that we make that we don't really want to, or we wouldn't if the stakes didn't seem as high,
Mhm.
maybe.
Yeah. And you said something that was really interesting that, sometimes on the journey, there are things that that right off the bat that, I'm not going to do that. But as we grow, then other things become important for us, or other things become unclear on the radar. And then so it's this thing about always evaluating like how we're growing and what we're growing into, how we're growing into what we're growing into, and is to be conscious about it. So that brings up the next question is like, how do you prevent yourself from compromising on the things that you value?
I think for me, one of the things that being on this journey has done is actually, I want to say forced, but I was confronted by my own values. So it wasn't a force, but it was a reckoning with what I believed. And what I realized was that I didn't actually know what I valued going in.
Mm.
And even as I look back at my marriage, um, I look back at companies that I worked for. I look back at my journey in network marketing. I look back at some of the relationships I have. And I know that when there were these conflicts that were unreconcilable,
Mm-hmm.
was because there was a value misalignment. So it wasn't that other people were doing anything wrong. It was in me, there was a value misalignment. And so what I learned was I had to sit down, Taria, and actually get clear
Yeah.
on what I valued. And as you know, integrity is my number one value. Do what you say you're going to do. Treat people the way you want to be treated. Honor your word. And so I found times where I wasn't going to honor my word if I was going to do what was asked of me. I wasn't going to treat people the way I wanted to be treated if I was going to do what people were going to ask me. I wasn't going to do things that I truly believed in
Mm-hmm.
if I was going to do what was being asked of me, or not even what was being asked of me, what would give me the easy track to
Yeah.
success. And so for me, it was literally sitting down and writing. And that's where the mastery principle, guiding principles for success comes from, that inner compass, that inner knowing. And my inner knowing are those beliefs and values that help me feel whole, grounded, and complete and in alignment. And when I step away from them, I get that disruption in me. And oftentimes I want to fight with the person out there, and it has really nothing to do with them because all I'm trying to do is convince them to think like me or believe what I believe, where the work is really in here. And I have to sit with what I believe and make a choice. And sometimes, as you know, that choice is not fun because that choice sometimes feels like you're losing something in the moment,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Losing a job, losing a friend, losing an opportunity, losing a client. And I think it's not really a loss. It's we're not in alignment. We weren't supposed to be together, working together in collaboration, whatever it is in the first place, is my way of looking at it. I had to sit and write that list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's so key that you said that because as I shared the experience of me working in my 9 to 5, of course back then I had no idea of actually writing the values down. I just equate it to there's this feeling in the pit of my stomach and it doesn't feel good. And I just
Yeah.
want it to stop, right? But it isn't until, like you said, like we really get conscious and know, you know, that these are the things that, you know, I value, these are the things that I won't compromise. And as we talk about it, I'm going to say this is one of the areas that I think that, you know, I pay attention to, and it takes so much courage. That's the word that I'm going to use as we talk about this. You know, it takes a lot of courage because once again, you will see people around you and it seems that they are moving ahead further than your move ahead. You know, they're on they're fast tracking and
Yeah.
you're standing still sometimes it feels, or you're moving very slow. And then people are saying, like, well, you know, like I said, if you just do this, why don't you do this? Why don't you align yourself with that person? You know, if you form a collaboration with this person, or you continue to work with this person, or you implement this practice in your business, then things would just automatically turn around, or they would explode. And I myself, you know, sit with that, okay, because I know that
Yeah.
there's a feeling that I want to have when I do business. And so I didn't leave my 9 to 5, you know, to get away from that icky feeling, to come over here and still have an icky feeling. And so it takes courage, you know, to do that. And then I'm also going to say it takes faith, because it does take faith when you are journeying a different path from others, and people, you know, aren't willing to see. There's no validation a lot of times in what it is you're doing. You feel all alone. But like you said, it's knowing at the end of the day that you did not compromise your values. Those are the things that allow me to put my head down, you know, and sleep at night. And that's one of the things that I check for. So if I'm waking up in the middle of the night and I'm all anxious and I don't feel good and everything, then I know that there's a problem and something needs to be fixed. So that's one of my compass checks, right? If I'm having things that are eating me up, then something is not right. And I either need to stop doing what I'm doing, remove myself from a situation, or find another way to do it.
You know, one of the things about this whole piece around value alignment is that it really gets you clear on what you will or will not do. And and I know a lot of people will say, well, I value family.
Mm-hmm.
I value family. And then you watch their business and you're like, I don't see that family value because you don't have time for them. And oftentimes the what they'll say is, well, when I get to here, I'm going to have time for these people. And my question will be, well, what will your relationship be with these people when you get to there? You'll hear people say, I value my health. And then as they're going along this journey, they have no time for their health, and their stress levels and their sleeping and all these things are so out of sync, and they see themselves gaining weight, being tired, all these things. And they'll say, well, I'm just too busy to do these things. Yet they're saying they value their health. You'll hear people say, oh my goodness, I value open, honest communication. And I'm just going through some of my values, as you know. And you say, but you have a conversation that you need to have with this person and you're not having it. I value accountability. Okay, but you're not holding yourself or someone else accountable. And I'm listing these because this is what my clients come to me with, is they're all upside down, turned around. And what they're often saying is, I have a culture within my organization, within my company, that's not working. And people aren't producing, and people are not respecting each other, and people aren't accountable. And I'll say, well, what's the values of your company? And they'll go, what do you mean? And when we make the list, they'll instantly have the aha.
Yeah.
I am not modeling what I want. And I say, if you don't model the values of your culture, the person with the biggest personality will create your culture for you. And I think that's what happens to us in business. How many times have you been wooed by big personality that's, you're like wowed by them and you're excited to be around them. However, and you're in this journey, and then one day you wake up and you go like, what is going on? How did I get here? Why am I doing these things?
Mhm.
It's because you didn't see the value misalignment until it slapped you
Yeah.
in the face. And so I think this is such a great conversation because we're confronted by it
Oh, yeah.
day by day. And sometimes it's so subtle, and sometimes it is so unclear that it's only when you sit. I know for myself, I sit, I journal, I reflect on what's going on and why am I feeling off. And then boom, I see it and I'm like, oh, I'm out of communication. Or, oh my gosh, I haven't, I'm out of integrity with this person because I didn't honor my word with them. And then I got to go clean it up. If you don't know what they are, you're
Mhm.
gonna end, it's gonna be too late by the time you figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So, as you're talking about this, I just have to share with our super achievers, we have this conversation all the time, especially in the space, of social media. We talk about it. So when we take a look at being influencers and, building our influence online, there's certain things that you and I have sat down and we have decided that no, we're not gonna do. And it's
No,
okay. And it doesn't matter how many other influencers, how many other people we're connected to, and they do these things, those things are not part of our value. And so, like I said, sometimes it could feel when if you get into and this is why the comparison game is such a trap. So if you get into the comparison game and you're looking at others and you're trying to match yourself up to what it is that they're doing, like, no, and it's an honest question. Be honest. Are you willing to do the things that they're doing to achieve success? And then if you find yourself going, no, I won't do that, then there you have your answer.
well, let's be honest, right? Because it's easy to sit and do the assessment and say, and I don't think people often go, no, I won't do that at the head. They say things to themselves like, I shouldn't do that,
Mm.
right? Um, and then they go, but if I don't do it, this is what's going to happen. If I don't do this, this won't happen. If I don't do this, these people won't work with me. If I don't do this, these people won't like me. If I don't do this, I won't get this sale. If I don't do this, I won't get this opportunity. And I think it's that we really want to look at, because you said it takes courage. And it does, because when we really sit and be honest with what we believe, it takes stuff off the table
Mhm.
that are just not opportunities. It takes people out of your path that, yes, it would be easy, but that doesn't work. And it takes courage to say, yeah, this opportunity is sitting right here in front of me, and it's going to be so much easier. But I like myself at the end of the day? Will I respect myself at the end of the day? Will I show up as a different person to who I want to be at the end of the day? And I think asking those types of questions of ourselves takes huge courage.
Yeah, it does. Okay. And so I have another question for you. And so my question for you is there ever a time that you needed to walk away?
Oh my goodness. I have walked away so many times, um, some big, some small. And I remember, and and sometimes I've consciously walked away, and other times I've created my own circumstance where they're going to say, there's the door, right? And and I want to say that there have been times where I can see the writing on the wall. I've been asked to do something, and I can say, no, that's not for me. And I've taken my ball and said, I'm going to another playground.
Mhm.
There are very definite times I've done that. Those are scary at times. At the end of the day, though, it's very liberating because I'm sitting in who I be and I'm honoring who I want to be in the world. So
Right.
it's so once I've done it, it's like, and I can breathe easy. While I'm doing it, there's all sorts of different emotions. Then there's the times, and I've said to someone in the past, so I got let go from a place I was working. And when it happened, I was all in my upset. I was all in my feelings. I was all in a lot of things. And as I spent my days reflecting and painting my house, because when I'm in upset, I need to be busy. So I decided I was going to paint my house. Poor family. They came home and like it's a different color, and they came home as another different color, but that's another story. And so as I was reflecting, what I began to realize was I caused my firing.
Mhm.
And I caused my firing because I was something happened at work, and I won't get into details. I disagreed, and I disagreed with my boss.
Mhm.
And I confronted her on it. And the confrontation, although polite, wasn't received well. And I remember walking out of her office and thinking, oh my gosh, I am so done right now. And I meant done like I'm so fired. Well, a few weeks went by and nothing happened. I didn't know they were getting their ducks in a row and their all the things in place. And then one day I came in and everything was packed up and I was escorted out like a criminal. Yes. Never to enter the building again, and all the things that you see in the movies. Yeah, it happens. And I was in my feelings. When I was able to pull back, though, I created it. And I really want to say this because I set a limit based on what I valued. And when we set those limits based on what we value, we also have to know that there's going to be consequences.
Right.
Whether we're right, there's still going to be consequences. And so when the dust settled and I was able to sit and reflect, I actually was very pleased with who I was willing to be for myself.
Right.
I was really pleased with what I stood for myself. I was really pleased because I could have advanced on the back of somebody else, really. And I chose not to. I chose to lift up that person and say, no, we're not doing this. And this is not okay. And of course, my advancement went out the window. Those are the things that we're faced with. And so, yeah, I had to walk away. This is the thing, though. When I walked away, another door instantly opened. It was a bigger door. It was a bolder door. It was a door that was in alignment with who I was. And that door only opened because I walked away,
Mhm. Yeah.
right? I wouldn't have had that opportunity had I stayed and was short-sighted
Mhm.
and acting desperate. And that's really what it is when we do those things. When we compromise our values, we're actually in scarcity and desperation. And we're not in faith and abundant and saying, if it's for me, it's going to be in alignment. And if it's not, I need to step away because there's something for me coming that I can't see right now.
Absolutely.
How about you? Have you had a time? Well, you did. You said you walked away from your job.
I'm like you. There are plenty times, that I've had to walk away. So as you were speaking and you were sharing that experience, another experience came to my mind. I actually used to work for another company, a home improvement company. And I remember actually liking working for the company. This one I really liked. I liked working for the company. I actually liked the owner of the
Mhm.
company, and I love how he, you know, his presence in the company, because a lot of times, you would have people who would own companies and you would never have the opportunity to know who the owner is, much
Yeah.
less see the owner every day. And so I thought in my mind that we developed a friendship. Oh my gosh. So I thought that we developed this friendship. And
Oh,
because I developed this friendship with this owner, that it was absolutely okay for me to freely speak my mind. When I tell you I was naive and green back in the day, it was just like, no, that's not how any of this stuff works. And so there was a situation that once again went against my values, and I called myself asking the owner to have a meeting inside of his office. So I said, can I speak to you for a second? And I proceeded to open up his office door and invited him into his office and have a conversation. Well, um, luckily for me, there were no police officers escorting me off the premises, but I was gone off the premises that day. That was my last day. And so
yeah.
for me, of course, I was very hurt and very wounded because in my mind, I thought that our relationship was there. And then two, if I consider you someone that I care about, then I cannot keep quiet when I see certain things happening and certain things going on, especially when, in my opinion, I consider a detriment to you yourself, a
Mhm.
detriment to your family, because these are the things that I value. And then thirdly, the detriment to your company and the environment that's being created here in the company. And so I remember being asked to leave, and the door for me didn't open up right away. It took the door, like the bigger, better, bolder door that you talked about, that door took 6 months, to
Mhm.
but I remember after about 30 days, the owner of the company, he did call me back and he apologized, and which was greatly appreciated. And then he offered me my job back with a different promotion, with an advancement, a different position. And I sat there and I wholeheartedly accepted the apology.
Mhm.
But what I knew is nothing had changed. And so
Yeah.
I had to respectfully decline, because once again, it was one of those things that I could not continue to be in that environment every single day and come home with that feeling in the pit of my stomach. And if I say that, I care for you and I see you as this person, I can't enable, because that's what it felt like. I can't enable this behavior to continue. So even though I might not change or be able to change what's going on, what I could do for me personally is remove myself from the environment. And so that was, another, as you were speaking, I haven't thought about that in years, but that was one of the examples that clearly, I walked away. And then that's what I talked about when you have to have faith on the journey. It's like when you know that you are not compromising your values, opportunities will come. The right situations will come, the better situations
Absolutely.
will come. So you don't have to put yourself in situations or stay in situations where you're compromising your values.
Well, I think, there's such a great conversation because I think we're talking about my values, we're talking about your values. And I really want people to get that I'm owning my values. And I'm also very clear that someone else may have values that are different to mine. And I really want to talk about parting of ways for a moment. Parting of ways, whether it be marriages, parting of ways, whether it be friendships, parting of ways, whether it be coworkers. And society kind of conditions us that when we part ways, we need to be mad at the person, we need to badmouth them, we need to make them wrong, all these things. And when I know when I was going through my divorce, this was one of the biggest learns for me because became such a clear thing that I had made a choice to walk away.
Mhm.
And I didn't make a choice because the person I was walking away from was a bad person.
Mhm.
I didn't make a choice because um, I would like all the reasons, people fight about. I made a choice because it wasn't in alignment with my values once I understood what they were.
Mhm.
And
Right.
so I was living in a conflict and turmoil. And our tendency is to make the other person wrong, make the other person bad, want to make them believe what we believe. And respect and freedom to be says no. And for me, that was the biggest learn because I want what I want and I want you to do what I want because that's kind of how I am until I matured and realized, no, you have the freedom to be who you want to be. And I have a choice to make at all times, whether this circumstance, this person is is the best collaborator partner for me. And it's not about making the other person wrong, because like me, I'm on a journey of self-awareness.
Right.
They're on a journey of self-awareness, and our journeys don't always gel at the same time, nor are they always the same.
Right.
And so what it allowed for me was in almost all my relationships as a result of this and prior to, without my knowing, a healthy parting of ways
Mhm.
where I can still be in relatedness to you. I can still wish you well. We can still be in communication. You're not a bad person. I don't have to do all the things we do, the bad mouthing that I'm not going to talk to you. I'm making a choice and I have to own my choice. And I have to own my choice around what I value and not expect everybody to value the things I value. I think also what I realized by me stepping away and setting a limit like you did, sometimes that's exactly what someone needs for their own reflection, right? I know that sometimes someone has set a limit for me and I've got to go away and think, and it's the catalyst for my growth. It's the catalyst for me to have that insight about myself that has me get clear on
Mhm.
how I'm crossing a line, not honoring myself, showing up in a way that I don't want to. It's when people have the courage to draw that line with me that I grow. And so for me, this is such a key conversation because as a result of it, for me, Taria, I honor my relationships and I do business while honoring my relationships, not in spite of my relationships, but in honoring my relationship. I do business and honor my health. So I have very clear boundaries around my health because I say I value my health. I do business and I honor my time. And I wanted to live this juicy life where I got to have fun and play and work really hard. So I found that balance. None of that would have been available to me without the clarity that comes from those moments where you're confronted
Yeah.
and you have to walk away or you have to do something different. And then it's an opportunity to learn and get clear and hopefully not make the same mistake or repeat the pattern again. And so this is why I think this conversation is so important because it creates the space for people to reflect and say, what do I stand for? And what won't I compromise? What line won't I cross in the pursuit of my big, juicy, audacious, fantastic vision for
Yeah.
my life?
Yeah, and it's so good because one of the words, and I was going to say it as you were talking, but you said it. One of the words that came to my mind was boundaries, and I know for a lot of people, especially entrepreneurs on the journey, boundaries can be a very scary word, and people don't have boundaries. They don't know how to set boundaries. They don't know, limitations that they should have in relationships with people. So I want to ask you to go back and go a little bit deeper in the boundary conversation and why is this so important to us as influencers?
You know, every time I have not honored a boundary, I know that I should have. The cost is my reputation.
Mm,
The cost is my own personal power because I always know when I'm out of integrity, even if the world doesn't. And what I've learned is when I'm out of integrity, I show up less powerful because my mind knows and my body knows that they're not connected. My heart knows. And so my asks aren't as powerful. I can't hold people accountable in the way because I can't ask someone to do the things I'm not doing or hold the things I'm not doing. So every time, Sharia, I compromise on my own values, it cost.
Mhm.
Every time I compromise on my own values, I attract people that aren't in alignment with me because they're in alignment with what I'm compromising on, but that's not my truth. Every time I compromise on something I believe in, I end up exhausted, I end up frustrated, and I'm not showing up as my best self. And I know, and you know, when I get exhausted, frustrated, and overwhelmed, I become controlling.
Mhm.
That is my go-to. And so for me, I don't show up as the person I want to be, which is open, um, ease, grace, abundance. I'm now in struggle, scarcity, all those different things. And so I think what you want to ask yourself, what I ask myself is, Suzanne, how do you want to be known?
Right.
Who do you want to be as you walk this walk? What do you want people to say about you? And I think those are big questions because when I compromise on my values, my influence changes.
Mhm.
And I attract people that I don't want to attract. And I also repel people I want to attract. And, one of the things I always remind myself is if I want to attract someone, I've got to become that person because value alignment is value alignment. People are looking for a reflection of themselves when it comes to values, not when it comes to skills, talents, and expertise, but when it comes to values, whether we know it or not, we are looking for a reflection of ourselves. So if you're dishonest, you're going to find dishonest people. If you are, what's the word? You put yourself first and you put others last, you're going to attract a certain type of person. So I say, I've got to become that which I want to attract.
Mhm.
When I am not in alignment, I can't attract that amazing, fantastic collaborator that I want to attract. I can't attract the next best level of myself as an opportunity because I'm not that person and they'll see me coming a mile away. They'll be like, you're not who we're looking for. And I won't have the influence I want in the world.
Absolutely.
Right.
Sir, I love it.
Um, Let me ask you a little bit of a different question. What's the number one value that often creates your walking away? Like when that value is being compromised, what's the number one that you say, yeah, I gotta go?
Yeah, so for me, what I pay attention to is I really do value quality of relationships. I really do. And because I'm that type of person when I look at myself, when I find people, I tend to hold on to people. So I'm really that person who gets along well with everyone, but yet still the circle of people is really small and
Yeah.
really tight. And so when I find my people, like what I like to call them, I tend to hold on to my people. And so it's all of those things in relationship. So you talked about being in integrity. You talked about having open and honest and timely conversation. So what does it take to make a relationship work? And so that's the thing for me that I hold onto when I take a look at the value of relationships. So one of the things that I've learned to do, and I never knew this before, but I've learned to do this, is as we as I continue to meet people along the journey, is to really do that value assessment. So
Yeah.
oftentimes we meet people and we might, see all the things that they're doing. We might look at, their sphere of influence that they're creating. But really and truly, did we do a value check? So I'm learning more and more to do a value check. And when I take a look at the things that are on top of the list for my value, if we could, knock off the first 3 to 5, if we're in alignment with the first 3 to 5, then I know I'm going to fight for a relationship. And when I say fight for the relationship, what I mean that not everything is going to be smooth and easy. And so even in our collaborations, we don't drag out and fight people. We don't. But we have the tough conversations because
We have spirited conversation.
passionate. So but it's
Growth creating conversation.
right. There you go. I like that one. I'm gonna carry that one forward. Growth oriented conversations. And so, but it's that thing because I know we value relationships. So as we journey through the challenges and we work through those things, I never have to question your integrity. I never have to question if you're going to treat me with respect because we value relationships. So this is just, another spoke in that wheel that we are working through to strengthen our relationship. And
Yeah.
it was one of the things that, and I'm going to get personal if you allow me, is one of the things that I did in my personal relationship that I'm in now. It's just like, you know what? Before we go any further with this, can we do a value alignment? Can you write down and share with me the things that are top of your list that you value? And I'll share with you the things that I value. And then we actually sat down and we had a conversation around it. And it's the thing that, like you said, when we step into those challenging times, we're able to see, you remember you said this, you wrote it down, you shared it with me. And it's the anchor that keeps us, together. So I think that has been like my biggest growth because before, I would enter into relationships, whether they're personal relationships or professional relationships, and didn't do any kind of value alignment. You sound good on paper. My yes, I'm learning to slow down my yes. So I used to be a quick yes person. And I'm like,
Mhm.
before I say yes, let's kind of slow things down and do a little check, make sure that we're in alignment here. Because what I know is that push comes to shove, I want to be able to go to bat for you.
Absolutely.
Okay. And just like how I want you to be able to go to bat for me, like that's the type of person I am.
Yeah, I love the answer. I love the answer. And it leads us right into our quote, which is by Maya Angelou. And she said, I agree a long time ago, I would not live at any cost. I just want to stop there. I
Mhm.
agreed a long time ago, I would not live at any cost. If I am moved or forced away from what I think is the right thing, I will not do it. That's like a summary of what
Mhm.
we've been talking about. And so I'm going to invite you to do the work that we do. Tria's gone through this work with me. I do it with all my clients. What's your GPS, your guiding principles for success? What are those core values and beliefs that have you sit feeling whole and complete? Can you list them? Do you know what they are? And then as Maya Angelou says, if you're forced to step away from them, don't do the thing. Sit in faith and know something better, something better is coming, something more in alignment is coming down the pipe for you.
Absolutely.
Last, last thoughts, Tria. What's your
No, I was just about to say it's such a quote of courage. Like it sums it up. It's just a quote of courage. I love it.
It is, it is. And I think if there's a word for this conversation is, do we have the courage to be who we are authentically meant to be, truly meant to be? So with that, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. My name is Suzanne Hart. As you know, this is Taria Hodge. We will be back here next week, Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, we were going to ask you to please know you're brilliant. Know you are oh so very special. And we do this work because we know the world is waiting. The world is waiting for your unique gift. Blessings, and we will talk to you next week.